When people say that they love you, is it truly that they mean it, or it could be just some kind of quote that they say just because whatever reason? Well, I'm gonna accept those situations where narcissists or people like that, toxic people would want to crawl under your skin. See, it is up to everyone to figure out for themselves if someone is actually ill-intended or well actually feels a bit genuine towards what they are talking. Because people have to learn that socializing is the only way to go in society. Sooner or later, you'll have to do it. You just can't sit all day in your home and do nothing, expecting that your life will become better. See, a lot of people get depressed, but depression happens because you're not talking to people and you're not doing things that you really like. This whole society was built on that, so that you are constantly depressed because your depression is the nectar that sickness requires in order to exist. So when people say that they love you, instead, in most cases, people being miserable, what they mean is they love your presence, not that they love you specifically. You may have a presence that is somewhat wiser than them, that is somewhat soothing for them, or whatever happens, typically they gain something out of staying close to you. And I'm not saying necessarily about material things, they are, how to say, benefiting in a way. Like it's like you're recharging them, or you're making them feel much better, or you're distracting them. This is a problem in a way, because if you end up for your auric field or your existence, your very presence ends up distracting people from things, in a way you're a distraction to them. They might say that they feel good, but the problem is not necessarily you in your presence, but the problem is that they are using you as a distraction from their problems. So they're not solving their problems and using you as a distraction. Well, if you're being used, that kind of doesn't sound much like love. See, what is love? People simply can't understand in most cases what love is. And since a lot of people are simply dum dums, the only thing that they can perceive about love is sex. Because, well, as I've been saying, when people are miserable, the only highest pleasure they can feel is sex. Well, it doesn't mean that that is the only pleasure they can feel, but that is the lowest they will constantly succumb to, yes, but at the same time, it is, people settle for less and less the more miserable they are. That is a highly important thing. A sick society requires misery, and well, it requires ignorance in order to keep people in misery, because ignorance means you don't care how much you get hurt, so you're not gonna do anything, right? But people will say that they love you irrespective of them feeling miserable or not. But the question is, if they're miserable, see, if someone is in shambles, I don't think anyone can actually love you if they're in shambles. They might feel a sacrificial spirit, yes, because that is, for example, a core male aspect, even if they are miserable, or to a certain extent, the more miserable they are, the more they may feel like committing sacrificial actions for someone else. Maybe they actually can cherish you, but the point is, don't spend time with a ruin, right? A ruin may provide you some cover, a ruin may provide you something, but ultimately it is nothing but a ruin. The energies around it are never gonna be welcoming enough, okay? Because the ruin is the result of a lot of actions, and those actions are impregnated in that ruin's memory, right? The energies surrounding that ruin are definitely not cutesy ones, and abandonment and all sorts of other things do have their own impact even on inanimate objects, like for example houses, right? And well, not gonna dive into the paranormal and the such, but when people usually tell you that they love you, a lot of people are simply ruins, and it's a kind of way of saying that they would like you to solve their problems as well. This could be something else, because a lot of people simply have TikTok mindset. They can't last with their attention more than several seconds. They must consume, consume, consume. Think that statistics say that some American peoples, well, they say in general, but statistics mean, something done on a few people and then you generalize it on other people. on all the people. So since I take generalize as a psychiatry disease, that's my point, not other people's. I don't take into account statistics, but they say the typical screen time or phone time and or PC time for an American is 7 hours. And I'd be like, bro, that's a lot, because 7 hours is a lot of screen time, right? It's almost your job. And this is leisure time activity, okay, not that you work, because, well, if you work, typically you're involved with computers, or you're gonna have to face, some computer screens, because, well, these are the times a day. But 7 hours, well, you can imagine these people when they are faced with the, I would say, more or less inevitable odds of having to let's say socialize, more or less, and not necessarily court someone, but socialize. And then one of these people says they love you, right? Probably they've met your first Facebook picture, they like how you physically look, and probably they're into the idea that, hey, you know what, they love you. Well, I wouldn't go as far as that, okay? Now, I've had my fair share with, let's say, unloving people and the such. So typically, I tend towards studying people a lot and using my, well, let's say, patience. I actually have a lot of it, actually. And I'm gonna take my time to find people out and, always focus on someone's course, not their personality. The personality is like the skin, it is more or less a residual aspect or a skin level thing, it is something superficial. Personality is important in a way, but why I call it a residue is because, well, a lot of people being junk like, they just absorb other people's energies. That also includes their opinions and the such. And since they have bad opinion over themselves, it's like they're just the junk that they collect from other people. And, well, that's why I call it a residue, right? They're residue people. They're just victims of abuse, abandonment, and the such, and they just wander around. And, when one of those say that they love you, probably to a certain extent they mean it, really. They may actually have some genuine feelings, but if someone doesn't solve the junk in their life, it's not that they're gonna be a good fit for you, right? Because if you join an inhospitable terrain, it's not gonna make an exception for you, right? If you go to a swamp, it's gonna treat you the same way as any other human being, right? Maybe, the super gurus and people who have reached ultimate states of being, maybe they may be treated a bit differently because their influence can be different, right? Like they say, when the Buddha would walk, even if it was winter outside and there was snow, his spirituality, his power was so great that flowers would suddenly bloom out of nowhere, even in the middle of the snow, right? And as he would walk away, they would simply fade. But this is just an exception, it doesn't matter much, right? So take your time to read people, to understand people, because someone telling you they have feelings for you, it doesn't mean anything in my case, for example, or in other people's cases. Like, I don't know, there are situations that they simply can't attach emotionally, or they simply can't care emotionally, right? Don't hasten yourself in simply investing emotionally. This is typically usually to girls because, well, they usually invest emotionally more than men. But the point is, don't hurry, don't rush in taking decisions that you may later on regret. It is better to simply take your time, because even if they end up as not being good, and let's say you spend 1 year along that person, if you haven't learned anything from those mistakes, or you haven't learned anything about how they function, and usually some human design patterns and how they function within you, and the such, well, perhaps you should deepen your understanding in a way, and learn how to see the patterns and how to get better at reading people, right? Because spending time along people should always be a lesson. Some people will be bad, some people will be good. That is how life is. This being said, hopefully this video raised a bit of awareness. You're appreciated, take care, and feel free to view any other content on the channel. Take care, have an awesome day. Ferencan Board signing out.